You referenced a cultural death and a cultural decline, and this is something that I've been thinking a lot about over the last couple of years. I'm sensing it. It's a feeling more than, I'm sort of becoming very woke as I talk about it because it's all about how I experience things. But that I'm not like, I haven't been to the cinema for years now. I used to have a card that allowed me to watch as many movies as I could in a month because that's how much I love great cinema. I haven't been to a movie theater, as you guys would say, for years because every time I look at the trailers or whatever, I'm not seeing anything that interesting. It's very, very rare for me to see something that's been made in the last few years that I really like. And everything I look at, whether it's literature, whether it's comedy, there is a decline happening. I think it's very difficult to argue that there isn't. There's still great stuff coming out, but it's increasingly more rare. What do you think that is about, if you agree with me that it's happening?
I I mean it's a very difficult thing to kind of break down, but I do agree that there is. I mean, even when I go back to Marvel, it I'm someone who really enjoys these movies, but I also realize that these are adaptations of stories that are decades old in many cases. Um, when I
There was
listen to
that graph,
modern,
sorry, before you continue, there was that graph recently, wasn't there, where like literally like 70% of the movies that have been made in the last 5 years are either remakes or sequels.
yeah,
So
I mean,
the creation of new storylines is just so limited.
yeah, and I wonder if part of it, I wonder if part of it is again this ideological homogeneity within the major sectors of the industry that is preventing fresh ideas from bubbling up to the surface. I think maybe that's part of it. Um, I think part of it also is the advancement in technology in a weird way. It is amazing to see Thanos on screen, and you can see, if you look closely, like stubble on his hair and on his chin from when he hasn't, shaved in a couple of days, and it's such a great detail, and the CGI work is so amazing. But at the same time, I can go back and watch The Empire Strikes Back, and the practical effects in these films, I think, is something that helps draw you in more, and I see this with music as well. It's so highly digitized now. It's so heavily produced and it's so electronic that it's sounding less and less like a human being. If I look at comic book art, so much of it is digitized, and you can't see the scritch marks or the brush strokes or whatever that you might see on an oil painting or something like that. So I wonder if part of it is technology advancing so to the point where uh, we're sort of disconnecting from what it means to be human in a way, or sentience maybe. I mean, John McWhorter put out a piece in the Atlantic where it's oddly enough, I thought the most salient part of the essay was what he spent the least amount of time on, which is the alienation of modern life. As we become more connected, we also become more distant in a weird way. When I was a kid, you played, Nintendo or Famicom or whatever it might be, and you went over to your buddy's house, you played Mega Man or Double Dragon or whatever, and then you got bored and you went outside and you skinned your knees and got dirty. Now you can play with your friends over the internet and you don't really have to meet up anywhere. There's so many forms of entertainment where we can just be, in our phones and not really connecting with each other. I think it goes back into what we're saying about archetypes and this sort of new orthodoxy where it's all about being harmless and all about treating others with kindness, which entails, on one hand, it's great for civilization and social order, but at the same time, maybe it goes too far and that we are tamping down things about ourselves. I mean, the sex in ourselves, the danger, the violence. We're so dedicated to being good that we're forgetting what's interesting, maybe. And on top of that, I think culturally there's this shift that is, I'm going to bring up the M word. I almost said the N word. that's not the right thing. Well, the N word, nihilism. That is an N word that I feel like is applicable to this sense. And there's a great, I mean. And I wish I were more articulate about this. I mean, there's so many things that I like to think about, but I I don't know if we maybe we're so comfortable that we're so that we in are that we in a weird way are removed from what it means to actually live. And this also kind of it folds into the response to COVID for me in a lot of ways as well. You know, how can people be so how can people be so callous about throwing away first dates or hanging out with your buds or playing with your kids in a park, these things that make it valuable to be alive while we're here shuffling our couple of hours on life stage. There seems to be a disconnect between what really makes us alive and vital and preserving what that is. And maybe part of it is because we're so dedicated now to breaking all these cultural norms that we're forgetting what these norms are rooted in the first place. I mean, I really don't know. I wish I had a better answer for that, but I do feel it, and I sense that a lot of other people feel it as well. They say we don't. They say we don't. They either say we don't want these reboots, or they're saying I don't. I don't watch movies anymore. I don't watch TV. I mean, I'm in New York City. I have friends in these hit shows. I don't even go to see shows anymore because I feel like I felt like they were making shows for themselves to please their audience. But then they turn around and say, well, why can't we get more subscriptions? Why can't we get more people coming to see our shows? I don't know. I'm not making a clear point, but I feel like we all feel it. I mean, I'm with you, Constantine. It's just there's something that is amiss, and it makes it difficult to be optimistic about about the future sometimes, to be quite honest.
Well,